project for whether it's flooding, fire, whatever disasters. If that is rated high, community supports it, the county supports it, it could get a project listed in the multi-hazard mitigation plan, that if monies came up, it could fund, whether it's the study, the planning, that aspects of it, but it makes federal money available. And so my plug-in is come fall, when we come out into communities, we need you guys' voices as to what is important to you. So the county can hear that and they'll support it as well. As multi-hazard mitigation plan. As far as coordinating response, in our emergency operations center, when an event happens, we bring in the first responders, police, fire, public works, parks and recreation, the different state departments, the federal government. They come to our EOC and, depending on what the issue is, we respond, we coordinate. We have the people in the field dealing with the incident. They let us know what they need at the EOC. We coordinate that within the EOC, whether they need state personnel or federal personnel or contract equipment. We make sure it's happening for them. And so, an event will go through. We work together. If an evacuation happens, we put out the messaging. We organize with Parks and Recreation, American Red Cross, shelters to be activated, those personnel to work the shelters. If there is impacts where people need longer term sheltering, congregate care, we arrange for that. Parks and Recreation and American Red Cross, along with Salvation Army, they arrange the feeding, that process, pretty much what's happened throughout the Lahaina. And then the housing, got the short-term housing right now. They're trying to arrange for the long-term housing for these folks. FEMA's over there with the disaster assistance center, registering everybody. And so this is all processes that we are involved with when it gets big, like what's happening on Maui. The federal government pretty much takes over their part, and then the local government, continues on the ground with our programs. But as far as, citing the fire incidents that we've had, HFD is responsible, Hawaii Fire Department. So we run an area command out of our EOC. They have the incident command at the scene. So we take whatever their requests are, we support them. So prior to a fire incident, we are working under prevention, protection, mitigation. We incorporate our CERT teams, community emergency response teams, to make contact with the community. We do outreach, try to get people to be ready. As events start to develop, working with the subject matter experts, in this case, National Weather Service, they let us know their forecast. Red flag warning, dry conditions, low humidity, very windy, red flag warning conditions. We put that message out. We get everything ready. We start coordinating with our partners to be ready. Where's equipment staged? Where's your personnel? Just try to be ready. And those folks know Public Works. They know where all the government equipment is. They know where all the private bulldozers are. And once we need them, the calls are made. So everything is coordinated. When it's a building incident, we coordinate ahead of time. Sudden onset events, which one is like a sudden earthquake. That stuff, basically, we try to create the best condition that we can prior to an event, because that gets us ahead of the curve, I guess. So if the community is prepared and you have an sudden onset incident. When I talk about preparedness, it's like you have your family plans, so where you're at work, you have an incident like an earthquake. You already know the kids at school, people at work, you know, how you're gonna communicate, where's your rally point, and so forth. Instead of all of a sudden panicking, not knowing what you're going to do. Having the knowledge that if you go back home, I have the supplies there to take care of myself for a period. All that creates the community resilience. So that's the stuff we do ahead of response.
And then in terms of response, especially to what just this most recent fire.
Right, so, you know, we get the alert that the fire's happening, we activate the EOC. And then we just, like I said earlier, we start supporting the field operations.
And tell me what the acronym was that you said, what you activate the what?
Emergency Operations Center.
Thank you. Emergency Operations Center. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, okay. So talk to us about how that worked in this most specific, recent things.
So, you know, I worked as usual. The fire chief gets notice, or dispatch calls one of us. We rally at the EOC, start getting our information. You know, on my way to the EOC, I'm calling the mayor to let him know what's going on. Then he calls his phone tree. I start calling my staff, and then everybody mobilizes at the Emergency Operations Center. From there, we start, you know, working the event. One of my staff will start working the incident action plan up, so that we have a record of all the operations that are going on, the personnel that are there. And that becomes the official document of the incident action plan. Right? And so that's happening documentation wise, plus we're doing the response as far as the fire. Then, you know, you start looking, you know, projecting how many operational periods you're probably going to be working. So start planning ahead, you know, whether it's additional staffing that you're going to need, supporting the fire department and making those arrangements, other equipment. So, you know, we kind of start working that cycle. That first operational period is somewhat chaotic.
Sure.
Because you're responding, ongoing multiple operational periods starts settle down into your rhythm, and you know, you have all your resources, and it's just a matter of you know, continuing the response.
Kevin?
Could you describe to us the process that goes into evaluating if an evacuation needs to be called for, and how that's the impact of that, and then how that's executed?
So we leave that to the folks on the ground to make that decision. So the battalion chief on the ground, or the rank from the police department, if they say that there is threat to life, or they feel that there is, you know, potential threat to life, and order an evacuation, we leave it to them.
So they issue it, you help publicize it, correct?
Right,
Okay.
they say we need to evacuate now, and we go through the process. That we formalize it by putting it in the mayor's proclamation.
Right. So in this one that we just had, there were certain locations, I know Kohala, the states that, so can we go through the specific ones just briefly to see what happened and how that worked?
Right, so fire initially started, I think, at mile 6, around that area. Konipuli Highway.
Thank you.
And as it evolved, that started threatening the residents. Fire determined that that community needs to be evacuated, Kohala Ranch. They determined, I guess, the boundaries of the area of the community that need to be evacuated. Police went door to door. Or stayed in their vehicles with their loud hailer in their vehicles and announced to get ready for them to evacuate now. So not till later in the day, as the fire migrated into other subdivisions getting evacuated.
Okay, and this evacuation, is there a difference between a mandatory evacuation and just an evacuation? I'm just asking.
Oh, and there is,
Okay,
so, initially it's, you're told to evacuate. And it's somewhat like voluntary evacuation.
okay,
When the mayor signs it into his EP, it becomes a mandatory evacuation.
Bill?
There were two separate fires.
It's fine.
Talk about the one that was over by Mauna Kea. That didn't come from the same place, right? That was a separate thing from the road.
So
Can we first clarify, how many fires were there? Because there was word there was 4 or 5 or so. How many fires were there?
Well,
7.
that day, I
Uh-huh.
think there were 6 or 7,
Okay, well, there's.
because we include the ones in common.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But right now, in South Kohala, there were 6 or 7.
6.
So there were 5 in South Kohala.
So you had the Kohala Ranch, and that's
Right.
spread to the other areas. You had the Lalamilo fire on the
Right.
Waimea,
That's what Bill
then
was
you
asking.
had the Mauna Kea
Yeah.
Resort
Yes.
fire.
Right,
So 3 on this side. And the others were in common.
okay. Thank you, that's great. So let's go back to Bill's question on the one in Lalamila. The one in Lalamila.
They weren't the same cause, were they?
The cause has not been determined.
It hasn't, okay.
Except for the one in common. The ones in common.
So there wasn't an evacuation in Waimea, though, correct?
No,
Okay, so let's then go to so there was the one at Kohala Ranch, and then there was the one at Mauna Kea, right? Okay. Can you tell us about that?
oh, I don't know the detail of the timeline, but we're involved in let's see. Kohala Ranch was first. In the process of responding to Kohala Ranch, Lalamilo fire broke out. So kind of have to split the resources. When things started getting worse down at Kohala Ranch, they took crews from the Lalamilo one, when they felt it was, pretty much contained, and moved them down to Kohala Ranch. And then later that morning, the Mauna Kea beach resort started. And so they had to split their resources amongst those areas. And then I don't recall what exactly the stations were, but it's pretty much unprecedented. First time it's happened that so much units from around the island had to respond. And so I think they left Puna and Kauai with their stations. They were having the same conditions up there as well, but so much units had to come down here. Plus, we had state fire, the Dofal, and then I think after a while, National Park set up to protect Kohala. So, and a PTA also, so a lot of resources organized to respond. Plus, we had private dozers working as well. State highways with their water tankers supporting the operation. A lot of private county, state entities that help control this fire.
So we were fortunate there was no property or loss of life. Property loss or loss of life. Is that correct?
Mauna Kea had structure.
Fortunate,
those
yes,
structures, yeah.
that there was no loss of life.
Say that again.
Trustee Nico on Mauna Kea had structural damage. They lost their entire botanical, and it's called the Barnyard.
Okay.
Lot of equipment lost, so they're borrowing from Hapuna equipment. An entire whole system where they host all their
Wow.
historical items, where they do things, lots of stuff.
Coming back to evacuations, when, because I was looking at that situation and thinking, I wonder if they're going to have to evacuate the hotel. And so, I was wondering then, what do they do? Who knows what to do when that situation comes up? Like here, you know, if we have an evacuation happening and there's some other situation happening on the island, that means we have to go, you know, say we have to go Maka instead of Makai. You can't go that way for some reason. I don't know. Who's making those decisions about what route people are going to follow, where they're going to go, and how are those plans? Like, are those plans something that people can view ahead of time, so you might know, you know what might happen, or are there something that made in the moment decision? Curious.
So that's all part of the mitigation. And then, preventive planning. Know what your routes are, it's like you guys discussed, having an alternate route in White Willow, right? So you know, you got your main road, you got an alternate route. You have so many different scenarios that, you know, you can say like, one gets compromised, you only got one, another alternative, you know, stuff like that. So you gotta be thinking that stuff through. In the case of the Mauna Kea situation, the field folks on the ground, along with the resorts, determined that they were going to shelter in place. They have enough, what do you call it, defensible space to protect the resort. So people, they sheltered in place there. And pictures I saw, you know, sprinklers were going on the golf course and so on. So that was the decision. What happens if they don't, you know, if they need help making a decision, in the EOC, we'll support them with whatever assistance they need, but they make the decision out there. What roads are open, what facilities are available. So that was made from the folks on the ground.
When you say they and the folks on the ground, you're meeting like the ranking fire
Yeah, so the battalion chief,
battalion chief.
Yeah.
It's okay.
along with the resort.
Do they have access to some plans that they know about for how an evacuation could go, or is it really just completely situational?
Somewhat situational, the fire companies, that's part of their that's knowledge space, knowing their districts they work in, so they've got a good idea what's going on.
So, Trustee Likuan, just to comment and add on to that, because I am the rep for Hapuna and Mauna Kea. In actuality, on the ground communication was broken to the employees. A lot of the employees were unknown on where to go, because management had not discussed or decided based on the work boots on the ground on the government side. And so we are working on a fire system that will plan, because Mauna Kea has only one exit and entrance. Hapuna has two, because they come out of Hapuna, right, entrance, and the top. And so we're working together closely to see if we can have some more fire preparedness for those employees and residents, because it's actually growing the community within the resort on the Hapuna side, Mauka side.
So is that what they're doing, is that something that you would want, you're gonna share with civil defense and?
No, the resort will
resort-
negotiate the
You'll
backup for the
negotiate with the resort
employees.
and the resort will share it with you,
Correct.
and you'll know what the, okay,
Yes, so we actually
I'm
gotta
just
touch
making
base
away.
with them.
Yeah, just to tie in the connection with civil defense, actually, all the county first responders. The Hawaii Island Security Dispatch are the security groups aligned with the resorts. Civil defense, fire department, police, we're all part of that. So, well, when the event was going on, we were in direct communication with the Mauna Kea.
but what I'm hearing from Trissy is that whatever communication was happening at the hotel level was not filtering down
That's correct.
to the employee level. She's an ILWU rep, so she's gonna know this stuff.
For, just for the record, because there's no significant trail plan down to leadership management, it may be stuck at a certain point or place that needs to be filtered, so everybody has the same message to evacuate. Because what we had was people just leaving on their own. So
Wow.
what happens if they don't meet at a certain area, because you learn you have fire drills within the resort and you have X and Y areas to go, but not in where it would be a road closure situation. Right, so that kind of thing from execution, from notification from you guys down the chain needs to be fluid. I think needs more improvement. And we'll certainly work with the hotels like that they have one for like flooding or tsunamis, but they don't have one for fire blocking
No.
access road.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good for you. Kathy, you had a question?
Yes, Ruth, we only have one way out for an evacuation. It's on a very narrow road. The gates have to be unlocked by the police or somebody else to let us go. And the road is only wide enough for one car. Most of the people did not even know it existed. But in the last 2 months, there have been another couple of signs that have been put up about Hulu Road is this way. You mentioned it 2 weeks ago to people, they wouldn't even know where to go to get there. And then the road is so narrow, the best you can do is do 10 or 12 miles an hour because it's very windy and extremely narrow. So this is part of our pressure to get a second road in, because you can't get 10,000 people out of Waikoloa down that road and then release them.
So let me just interject there for people who don't have the background in history. We had a fire, right? We had a fire, and as a result of the fire that we had, okay, under Mayor Kim's first 8 years, sometime in there, a emergency access road was designed to go through Waikoloa from Hulu, and it is a single, parts of it are paved, we've been through that, but it goes down and it comes out on the Queen K Highway. We've had practice drills on it, right? Julia's been very involved in this. We've had, trying to keep people, but what is 100% clear, okay? I know that when I evacuated the previous year in 2021, I know that once I got, fortunately, I evacuated exactly when they said I went. And once I got on Waikoloa Road, I was bumper to bumper traffic, and then bumper to bumper traffic onto the highway, because at the time there was no police letting people in. So there was this huge backlog. Now, this is different than now, because we were going where we would not want to be going in this last fire. We wouldn't have wanted to be going that way, right? But so it does exist. It is possibly useful to us. That's the background on that. But she's not. Okay, so
Oh, I had.
yeah, you had a question, yes. And say your name, please.
My name is Mary Wills, and forgive me, I do not know the woman who was seated to your left. I had a question about
Here?
communication. Yes,
Yeah,
Tracy.
okay.
communications. When you said there was some communication, was that on cell phone or walkie-talkie? The reason I ask is, I was in New York on September 11th, and it was easier for me to get international phone calls. All of our phone lines are jammed.
So a lot of the workers had information from social media, right? That was a faster way to get it than getting a manager to report, because all the managers would call to a meeting to go talk about the fire instead of doing, what do you do? Right? So everybody got their own process and they just left
But
work,
if
but
it's social media, was it on phone or was it?
on the cell
at
phone,
desk?
yes.
So it's concerning for me because sometimes the darn cell phone antennas can go down. So we have to have some type of
if there is an emergency, this is what we will do, and we will protect these communication nodes so that there is no danger of us losing communication.
Yeah. And Bill Sanborn. You guys have your own separate communication and civil defense. How do you integrate that with the fire department, the police department? Community response things and all that, is it one way of doing it, or is there multiple ways for getting this input and getting the output?
The way we communicate, share information. And you're correct, we have a land mobile radio system. But the frequencies, the channels are not shared. So the way we overcome that is, just like you guys are sitting here, all the different departments are at all the tables. So. The department liaisons are in there. They're taking calls from the dispatchers, they're taking calls direct from the folks on the ground. And they're talking across these tables, whatever resource. That's all. One way.
I would think that you'd be able to learn from the fire on Maui when communications goes down and all that stuff. How did they react? Because your communication system could be affected in one of the disasters too. So there's got to be a backup or a secondary way to do it. And
Yeah, so in emergency management, redundancy is critical. So we've got the land mobile radio. All our key staff have AT&T has been designated nationwide as the primary carrier for emergency service, emergencies. So that's called first net. So we all have first net on our cell phones. We have the priority linked to AT&T. We also different events. We will bring up amateur radio.
yeah, well, that's probably something that you'll be thinking about when you're updating this plan. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I have a question.
Karen.
Sorry, Karen. So I heard a lot about the access road. And you started by saying, getting projects in this. So should the community be working to get this road in the multi-hazard mitigation plan? Is that a next step for the community members that are here? And should it go into the plan that Bethany was also talking about?
Yeah, so when we start that process.
Yeah.
And the community outreach, that's the time to get that project, I guess, brought to the front. And if the community supports it and gets on the list, and get the county to support it, and it gets a higher rating, and that's a possibility.
So then does it need to go into both plans?
Does not hurt to get it everywhere.
Okay,
There you go.
Julia,
Julia Alos, could we not dust off the subcommittee report that we did in 2018 to the county by planning? They've already got the information. They've been sitting on it for 6 years already. We can pass that on to Talmadge because we've already done our research and homework, and it was all for naught. Now maybe we can CPR it. Thank you.
yeah. It's a patient process that we're in. Bill?
One quick question, Bill Sanborn. Everybody's concerned about the evacuation from Waikoloa. You should be able to look at it from a tsunami standpoint, and how do you get everybody in the hotels back up the other way? Because there should be enough energy on that to make at least a
Absolutely.
3-lane road instead of a 1-lane road.
Absolutely.
Because you're gonna have traffic coming out of that.
Yeah, we always talk about getting out of this village, but there are times that people have had to get into this room and into this cafeteria. Because I was with them on that, and we had, what the hotels evacuated. Well, we had about 300 people and maxed out the cafeteria laying around overnight. And then 2 buses arrived from a hotel. Unfortunately, they brought their pillows and their blankets, and I opened up this library. I was the vice principal here. It was crazy. Yeah, I mean, it was, it made a lasting impression.
So we have a lot of discussions and we're integrated with Hawaii Fire Management Organization as well. The Big Island Wildfire Coordination Group. And I'm kind of, I guess, leading the way for Elizabeth. Because
Right.
we've been working on products that hopefully will alleviate that sudden rush to evacuate.
Right.
And so, I guess I'm asking Elizabeth to kind of cover those items that we discussed.
Great segue. Thank you very much. We're going to transition. So Elizabeth Pickett is the director for the Hawaii Wildfire Management Program. She's online with us and she's ready, set, go.
Oh, that was a good segue because I was going to say the first part is ready, set, go, right? Everybody needs to be ready around their home, their yard. A lot of people are like, but my neighbor, and we say, no, you start with your family preparedness, your evacuation plan. You start with replacing combustible materials with non-combustible building materials, and then you work in a series from the closest area to your home and structure walls out into your yard. And it's good housekeeping. You sweep up all your leaves, you clean up all the nooks and crannies in your rain gutters that have debris, et cetera, inside. Because we have fire travels in a couple different ways. It's not just going to be the edge houses that burn. We can talk about why fuel breaks are only a piece of the solution. Because fires burn along the ground and they also throw embers in the air. And those can travel really far. And if they land in your leaf pile on your roof or in your yard, which is connected to a pile of needles or leaf debris, and then it just moves along, that's how we get structure to structure fires. And so the ready part is you need to do everything you can around your home and yard. Set is be paying attention. And so paying attention as the season is changing, as it's getting drier and drier, as the green grass turns yellow and then brown and then gray, be paying attention to all that stuff and know that fire season is upon us, risk is higher. Sign up for the civil defense notifications. You'll know when there's a red flag warning day, which is heavy wind, low humidity, all the conditions that are really ripe for severe fire behavior. And so all of that stuff comes ahead of time, but since we're talking about evacuation, you've been paying attention all season, you've been paying attention all day, and you get out early before you're ever even told because you're paying attention. There's a fire nearby, you're very aware there's wind, you can use your eyes, you can smell smoke, you can see smoke. Just go to the beach, get out of Dodge, go to dinner. You can always go back home and you don't stay late and you don't use up water resources and you don't become part of evacuation traffic because you did all that stuff ahead of time. Your family knows where to go. You've activated your emergency plan. You're getting out of there. And you can do that before anybody knocks on your door, before anybody alerts you. That's how we actually minimize traffic, is that people are on it. They're paying attention, they're looking, and you don't have to be told to go. You're a free agent. You can leave your house anytime you want. So you don't just wait and be told, you just get out of there. So that is the other part of evacuation that, of course, there's alerts and backups and all these things. And we have, one way in and out, mainly with the secondary egress that we can use, but we don't even want to max those out. And so leaving early with your own critical thinking and your own paying attention and situational awareness, that's really like the first part of evacuation is paying attention. But what Talmadge was talking about was that for the formal notifications, we have been working with our Big Island Wildfire Coordinating Group, which is all the county, state, and federal fire folks, to develop a color-based kind of level code system so that it's like green, hey, there's a fire, or now's the time to get prepared. And then it starts getting like yellow and orange and red. So one is like a nothing. It's just like, hey, just, there's a fire, but there's no threats to any community. But just to start your awareness, pay attention. There happens to be a fire, but right now there's no threats. But there is one. So that should trigger, start paying attention, but, nothing to worry about right now. And then progressively, it's like, hey, you know what? We're starting to watch this very carefully. We've got like really windy conditions and we're getting a little concerned. We're not issuing the evacuation yet, but it's kind of increasing to where you should be paying attention a lot now, just in case. And so if we marry that with the Ready, Set, Go Early program, you might even start leaving bed just because you can always go back home, because that is good best practice. But progressively, it turns into an evacuation. What is it? Threat? Warning? What are the words, Talmadge? There's like one is the basically recommended and one is required. And so the required one is like red. And it's
Wait,
like,
what was it? Hold on.
Yeah.
What was it?
Advisory, watch and warn.
Okay,
advisory, watch, and warn. Yellow, orange, and red. Green is like, it's fire season, be paying attention, get your act together, clean your house, clean your yard, sweep up those leaves. And then as there's a fire or it starts to become more threatening, you can be monitoring that situation. The idea is to get out when it's like yellow or orange, even though it's not mandated until red. So we're working really hard to do a lot of pre-incident education so that we can start releasing that as part of the evacuation notifications. I put the link to Everbridge in the chat for the Zoom people. So that we want to recommend everybody get signed up and then also pay attention. And we're so glad Civil Defense has been alerting folks when there is a red flag warning day and there isn't even any fire. It's just like, hey, it's a red flag warning, which means low humidity, high winds. We're in the middle of fire season or drought. We haven't had precipitation in a while. Like all the factors are coming together to increase our need to be alert and to be very careful with our activities. Because the other piece that I haven't really heard anyone mention is that people are starting fires and only a quarter of them are suspicious. There are accidents happening like crazy with campfires, with barbecues. Please put them out cold, with fireworks. And vehicles, please don't drive on dry grass. Wait until it's paved or dirt or gravel or something. When you pull over, don't sit there and idle under the shade of the tree on the dry grass like that. Because the other way fire travels besides direct flame and embers is radiant heat. And our vehicles, because many of our grasses are fire loving, they're basically species that are adapted to fire. They will ignite from your vehicles. So we have all these causes of fire, and we could all do a lot more to prevent them. And then you can do so much around your home and yard to be, to get everything ready. You can evacuate early. And so there's all these parts and pieces that you can do. But I did want to come back to people talking about fuel breaks, and just know that fuel breaks are part of a solution, but fuel breaks don't stop fires, because they might slow fires for the direct flame contact, but we also have embers. And so they're not 100%. If we got a fuel break, we'd be perfect, because what fuel breaks do is provide firefighting access. And then they still need water, and they still need proper equipment. They need training. They need adequate personnel. There's a whole package of things that need to come together to really shore up all of the parts and pieces. And so I did want to give a nod to Waikoloa, because that I know of, you're one of the few, maybe the only, who even got the second road in. And 2/3 of our communities in the state have only one way in and out. You are not alone. You are actually the role model. Even if there's lots of complaints, even if it's not perfect, at least you have one. And so I just wanted to say, good job on that, and keep going, and all your signatures, and you are piloting or modeling for the rest of the state as they watch you, like, how do we deal with ours? So on that front, you've done a really good job, and I'm so inspired by you all making that happen. And then, there's different buckets that we need to work in: the community awareness and outreach and teaching Ready, Set, Go, and everyone knowing what's going on with Firewise. That community bucket is also really strong, but there's always more to do, and to keep that up. Then we have our landscape bucket. What are we going to do with fuels? And fuel breaks is one part. We have a challenge in Hawaii in general, which is that we have a patchwork of ownerships and different landowners, different desired land uses. So I wanted to just bring everyone up to speed and let you know that there are a lot of opportunities for good stewards and our ranching partners and agricultural partners to be supported in making fire management plans and putting grant proposals in to do some of that work. And Hawaii Wildfire has been partnering with the Hawaii Fire Department to, yep.
I need you to wrap it up.
Okay.
Wrap it up. Thank you.
Okay, well, to start a working group and a help assistance for the large landowners to manage their fuels. So you can just know that that's coming down the pike, and that the communities and the large landowners are starting to work together, and we're developing programs for that. So if we could just stay in touch moving forward, I think we can start to move the needle on each of these buckets.
And I do want to say thank you very much, Elizabeth, and also for what you guys. The mayor has created an interagency working group to address fire issues that just happened this week. It's hot off the press. So that's about getting everybody who works on fires within, but also like working with Elizabeth's organization and other community input. I just emailed Cyrus Johansson, said, glad you're doing, and, you know, looking forward to doing community input. So if you haven't seen that, I don't know how I got it, except I got it. It's in the mail. So, did anybody want to add anything on that?
Sorry, we had one pending question about planned burns that Elizabeth said she was going to come back to during.
Oh, Elizabeth,
You
are you going to
can
talk about
quick answer?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the part I didn't get to, but when we're talking about landscapes, there's all these different methods. And so prescribed burns in many places is one method that's used, but we typically haven't used it as a tool in Hawaii because of our conditions and because of our minimal personnel to be dealing with that and to be setting fires. They're trying it out and doing some work on Maui, and we're better understanding the go, no go conditions for that. But what comes back is grass anyway. We don't have a fire adapted system like in the West, where that's a really useful and important tool. So we are preferring things like fuel breaks and grazing corridors and lots of other things for fuels management.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. We're going to move along on the agenda. Everybody's good with that. I wanted to give plenty of time for this, but we do have some important things coming up. We have some very quick reports. If you look on the agenda and you go to the permitted action, interaction groups, which is what planning calls subcommittees. So I call them subcommittees. But at the last meeting we had minutes that we approved, we established 4 subcommittees. One of them is a Hawaiian Island Tourism Committee. Another is the South Kohala CDP review, and that is taking a look at what would we ask for to change in the CDP down the process. Part of that is going to bounce off of the general plan and what the structure is. In terms of the tourism thing, this was a subcommittee that has not yet met, so that's a really short report on that one. And the CDP review is on hold until they're clear about how we set up a review and what the protocols are. We do have 2. Hawaii. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it very much. I can't thank you enough for driving over. Really good to have you.
Travel safe.
Yeah, drive safe. So the there is an update. Pete had talked to me about this, and Bill knows about it. Bill Sanborn from Waimea on the Hawaii Reservation. And then I'm just going to mention the other 2 items. So on the under county and roads, our subcommittees on county and roads, there's a question on the feasibility study. I don't know if you were able to. Okay, so there's not going to be any more to say about that feasibility study than what we've already said, because we're not 100% where it is. I'm sure is it planning. Like I said, they initiated it. It's there in the director's office. No one's here to address it for us. Oh,
I can
oh,
add,
wait, I think,
Ruth, just-
okay, we'll let Beth, oh, nothing going.
just update, that the mayor's office has been working on this. You mentioned someone else. It's the mayor's office.
Oh,
And-
it is the mayor's.
Yeah,
Okay,
and so a memorandum of understanding has been signed by the developers and adjacent landowners, allowing access to the roadway to assist with the planning and development. They are also working on surfacing. I don't know if anybody's seen any of that work being done. It's cold plain material. It's not, full on pavement, but there's some surfacing to make it more durable. And that work has already begun and is expected to be completed by the start of October 2023. So
but
just
the
a
start,
couple of updates,
like next month,
supposed to be completed by then.
look how big my eyes got.
What
That was for
exactly
this-
what's supposed to be completed? For
The
driveway?
cold plain material surfacing.
For the egress.
For the whole road? That's why I'm asking. It's pretty long.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
I
a long.
think it's just probably in places where it's
Okay.
bad, I'm assuming.
That would be the egress. Second,
Actually, probably a lot of that's bad. I'm wondering if that's just in Waikoloa Heights that
No.
they've done it.
Just their part.
No, it's more?
it's my understanding it was the egress, Julia Alos. The egress is supposed to be completely paved. It's not, it's partially paved.
Oh,
Yeah,
It
That
is
that has
the
nothing to
egress.
do with, I think what you commented on. Is that something to do with Waikoloa Heights? I wouldn't think
This
they'd
is
be,
Hulu Street evacuation.
thank
route.
you.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Thank
the
you.
egress.
Thank you. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
Okay, that's.
like
the-
going, whoa, we get
Okay, wait,
a month
okay.
from now.
So ixnay on that, because that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So that's the Hulu. This is the one that we're talking about up here. So this huge
Taniolo.
development with 2,600 houses.
Taniolo
New
Is
extension.
coming in. That large housing development is the one, that's Waikoloa Heights. It's been on the books since the CDP was done, and all of a sudden, they came in, they
That's
start doing infrastructure. They're moving forward, and we're cringing because we have 3,300 homes here right now. And they're bringing 2,600 in. So we're looking at our little intersection, and there's no second access road and Trindley. Right?
That's the one that has, sorry if I confuse people.
Okay, okay,
Okay, so the Hulu Street is the one that's getting the surfacing done, right?
okay.
Okay, the discussions with the developers on the new permanent roadway, that's where the MOU has been signed.
Mhm.
What did it-
Yeah.
Memorandum,
Memorandum of
okay,
understanding.
so remind me what an MOU is, just
Memorandum of
Understanding,
understanding, and that's between,
that is between the
Land-
developers and adjacent landowners.
okay, so,
10 Pool Code, Waikoloa Village Association.
okay, so the same people where they did the feasibility, and an MOU has been
Has
signed,
been signed.
well, that's progress.
Is that public?
The public will be notified as progress is made on this project.
No, is the MOU public?
It should be,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's the original MOU
Yeah.
from
And where,
last May.
and where can we find it?
that I don't know. I can get more information. from
Wait a
Thank
minute,
you.
maybe, do you have information on that?
Sure, so I'm Michael Conowitz from Waikoloa Village. I'm also a board director for the Waikoloa Village Association.
Right.
There was the initial MOU signed by us and the other property owners, and that was just for the feasibility study.
Right,
We've asked planning for updates, and we really haven't received any on that front. There's no new MOU. The next step is, according to Director Kern, and I don't know, is he on there?
He's not here.
So the last official word to the association from Director Kern is, with all the key stakeholders blessing the general layout of where that road would go, the developer is working on engineering to actually, on paper, sketch out how that road would be built.
okay, Bethany, let me ask for clarification, because it was an MOA that was done, memorandum of agreement was what was done between the three properties. An MOU is different,
MOU is different.
okay, and tell me what,
I'm gonna have to defer to Corporation Council on those
okay,
differences, sorry.
but you're saying there's an MOU now,
That
not
is-
the one that
That
was
is the
done.
communication that I got.
Okay, there's an MOU that has been. So you haven't, the Village Association hasn't signed off on that.
Yes, they
No,
did.
we have
Okay.
not received any.
There's Phil. Okay, so you wanna talk to us about this?
I don't know anything about the MOA.
Just what's the difference between an MOU and a?
It's really depends on what the language is, the document. You can call it whatever you want. But when you read it, that's what's gonna govern, right? So generally, an MOA is a general understanding the parties generally intend to do something. Whereas the MOA might have strictly terms and field.
Well,
But without me reading, I don't know.
yeah, but my understanding was the agreement was, well, the reason an agreement was needed so that was that Waikoloa Heights could go on Waikoloa Village Association property and on the property at Kamakoa LLC. Okay, that used to be Full Folks Intent. That was that memorandum of agreement. If there's another one, because it has come back, I know it's been submitted back. I talked to Roger Harris, who's the general manager here, and
Persig?
Huh? I'm
Persig or
sorry.
Harris?
Okay, Roger Harris used to be on this committee.
Mhm.
He's a friend of mine. That was the wrong Roger. So I did talk to him and he said that it was back to planning. And so planning now has to move it forward. So a memorandum of understanding would have more to do with something that might end up looking like a second access road.
So then this is where I wanted to spend 3 minutes addressing the panel on this agenda item.
Public comment.
As a
You
public-
also have a hand raised on.
Okay, so can you keep it to 1 minute?
No.
All right, can you do
I'll be
two?
as quick as I can.
Okay, go.
So, Director Kern has explained that it is a condition of development. That the developer will bear the cost of this road. And he said that it's a condition of development where the road must be built when X number of homes are actually completed. I would love for planning and this committee to push and find what that number is. When I've asked him and planning for a number, he's hesitant to give any more details because of ongoing negotiations. And as a community member and as a board member for the association, I'd love to know what those negotiations are. Speaking of negotiations, I'd like this committee and planning to get creative with those negotiations. So if the agreement, the unknown agreement, doesn't allow the construction of the road until say 300 or 500 or 1,000 homes are built, maybe there could be some clever negotiation happening where the road is built and the cost borne by the county now in exchange for something. Or maybe the developer can build it now in exchange for giving up another thing like a bond for another park or a performance bond for something else. So I'm urging everyone to come to the table and get very creative, because I'd like that road built right away, regardless of what the subdivision agreements have. Just the other point on the subdivision approval for Waikoloa Heights, in the original approval, it said the direction from planning department, and again, this is more than 10 years ago, said that the developer would agree to constructing fire breaks and fire paths and use construction materials consistent with a fire safe community. But the actual subdivision plan that I saw of the first parcel approved shows no fire breaks, and there's no reference to any materials. If anything, at the time of that subdivision approval, they agreed to even narrower lots that are more narrow than what the association currently uses today. So I'd like that revisited before additional approvals are given, or if there are ongoing negotiations with the developer in the county, those things should be thought of and communicated with the community. So not only is the association and those in Waikoloa Village, not part of the association, are kept aware and safe, but the new residents that are coming to Waikoloa Village can buy a house in an equally fire safe community.
Okay, great, thank you. Can you give, that's good. Can you give us the comment for the question online, please?
Yes. Hi, Tiga. You have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Aloha, yes. My name is Tiga Ka'ilimai, and I'm calling in from Kailapa Community Association. I'm on the board, and my fellow board members and I are certified with civil defense. So in case of these emergencies, we're kind of that first responder helpers. We actually have 0 evacuation routes in my community. And we have a small pavilion that could shelter about 120 people. We're working on building a pavilion that would be able to accommodate several hundred with a certified kitchen and showers. And so I would love it if Kailapa was included in this new planning to become a bigger point of service to our greater community moving into the future. Thank you.
Very good. Cindy, on this, do you have anything to add before we move forward on this? Okay,
All I know, what didn't come up is that the discussion on potential alignment with the owners of Kohala Heights, the community association, and the former Puerto 1010, the discussion with the Department of Transportation, trying to get approval where they would intersect on the highway. That's all in play, and I know that Steve Pazzi said that he and his staff were looking at the potential road alignment and how that might play out. Because Public Works obviously is responsible for the build out and what the cost would be, and what would be kind of a better alignment, let's say. So he's having his staff look at potentially where the roads are going at that meeting. So I do know he's working on that.
Okay.
He's
Very good.
mentioned that.
yes.
I just have one question on this. So I'm Karen from Puaco. And so our concern with the road is that we'd hate for it to come down and end up going into Puaco because we're just almost a dead end as well. So I would just like to know where we can get a copy of the MOU or their plan. We've been asking and it seems a little unclear, not very forthcoming with information. So how do we get more information on this potential road?
I would think that any MOU or MOA is public record, and so
Right,
it should
and,
be
and I,
available, but I don't have access to it. That's not where I work.
Okay,
I
I'm
just
looking at you and
I
I'm
just
sorry.
had a couple of updates because we knew we were coming, and so I asked for some updates.
So also,
But we
if
can
you-
follow up.
if you go back to our original CDP plan, there actually is a thing that shows the second access road.
But it's not coming out there.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is that the intention was never to come anywhere near Puaco because that's gonna add insult to injury. And I can, nobody, see all these heads nodding?
Oh, no, but I'm just worried about Puaco. I don't want,
No.
as a coastal person.
Right.
We know everyone could end up down at us and that worries us as well. So
Okay.
we're just trying to do our part and participating in the solution.
And just building on what Cindy said,
Yeah.
when the state DOT weighed in on this new connector road, one of the requirements they had was it does not align to Puaco Beach
Right.
Drive. So, and I do have that. I have the map of the last plan, so I can get you a copy.
Okay, we're gonna move this forward.
Wait, one quick question.
I'm moving to you, but go ahead, go.
Karen, Bill Sandlin, don't you have an emergency exit at Cool Cove that you can go
Yeah, you
through
can
on
be
the other side?
Manalani.
So to be clear, our emergency exit goes through state land that we as Puaco members have to unlock, and we as Puaco members pay to maintain.
The road.
So there's no one that comes and unlocks it unless it's one of 3 people that have the secret code. So I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
I'm not one. So, and the whole fire break behind us is also state land that we pay to have maintained. So it works. I'm not complaining, but it's not perfect because we have taken a lot of responsibility to make, and it's only 1 lane as well.
Where does it come out?
It comes out in Mount Olive, right next to the Petroglyph Park.
Right,
Lot
exactly.
line.
Right. Okay,
Yeah,
very good. So, wait, no, because see this man, he's leaving at 7 o'clock and he's taking the minutes. So we're gonna move on and Bill's gonna give us an update on Waimea preservation. Quicken, and then I have
Quick
that
and
one,
dirty?
yeah, I have that one thing from Pete, that's you're getting the young people in. But, okay,
Okay,
I'll
well,
give you a big 2 minutes and I'll keep time on you.
Bill Sanborn's finally connected the dots
Ah,
on Waimea.
there we go.
What made me take another look at Waimea, totally different than any of the other communities is that it wasn't a community-based town. It was a corporate town. And it was a corporate town because Parker Ranch told everybody when they needed to do things around there, and they managed the whole thing. And then we had other corporations come in. So we don't have the benefit of being a leftover Kohala or Javi, where it comes from the bottom up with people that are concerned about what place needs to be preserved and what's our roads and how is this happening. We're not a plantation town. We're not like Waikoloa, which basically grew out of people who were here and decided that they were going to try to have some kind of a township and talk about the access road and all the rest. So in Waimea, we're looking at it by saying that the best way we think we can assist is by calling some kind of a meeting, a community meeting, and getting out just the information on what makes Waimea Waimea, what is it that you want to see preserved, and make a list. And the best framework for making that list is probably through POM. Because the 2% fund would have funds there, and they don't necessarily, you can tell them all of the things that you want to preserve and why. And they may not adopt it, and you can put it in the next year, and then maybe they adopt it the next year. So what it is it's just gonna flush up to the surface, the same kind of things that we may be able to be proactive on instead of reactive, which is, well, I didn't know that was going in there, and then we have protests and people that are upset. Because the corporate mentality has always been, we're gonna do our planning like this, and then we're going to wait, tell everybody else what we're gonna do. And we need to get that changed. So that's what the focus is gonna be, and trying to get, we did one of these community groups, and we're gonna do a second one before the end of the year. We do that. And then I just wanted to make one final comment, is our last meeting, I kind of took the lead with several of us and decided that we needed to preserve certain things within the community plan that we needed to take some action on. It's a subcommittee. And so we may be over 6 months doing a report, but the bottom line is I've gone through and underlined all this, and I'm going to give it to you. So you can tell us, you know, either you guys are gonna get off the Ocolees and do something, or we're not
Okay.
gonna keep it on the next.
Okay, very
Okay.
good. Thank you, Pete, and thank you for keeping it short. I appreciate that so much. Except your bill, not Pete. It's all right, I'm fine. Okay, so let's go on to yes, wait. My note that I got handed, so if there's any, under this subcommittee group, we've got tourism, we now gone, we have not gotten to roads and bridges. Is there anybody, anyone who wants to make a public comment, please let me know, okay? Is this on preservation, or are we getting to the roads? Because we haven't
It's
done,
another road thing. It's a
Okay.
2B2.
all right, we'll let you have something to say under one of these, okay? So, yes, ma'am.
Under the Hawaii Tourism Island Tourism.
Yeah.
I wanna give a small report. This is just the.
Oh, is she on our
Yes,
committee?
yes.
Oh, dang.
So I am on
Good
the
job.
subcommittee. Yeah, I know, so the reason why there wasn't anything action, so I actually brought the printed Hawaii Island Tourism Strategic Plan for
Oh,
2020,
look at
2025. Trisha Savalos was in charge of this plan, but it never came to fruition. So I reached out like last year or something, nothing was generated from it, and it still hasn't generated anything from it. So I think we need to get off our ocoles and go for it. So
Correct.
we are working on it, but I'm.
We
doing
should
some
hold a
research.
meeting.
This is a meeting.
You're all.
No, we should hold a subcommittee meeting.
Yes,
Okay,
so.
thank
we
you.
should get back, yes.
Christine,
Okay.
who in the county do you work with on that plan?
Nobody, we got assigned to do this. We got, I guess, recommended if Bethany knows more.
Savalos is the deputy director for
Okay.
research and development.
Yeah, this is.
Who is?
All right, okay.
They reached
Trisha
out to
Savalos.
us. Through the
Okay.
pen.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I stand corrected. Okay, so now we're on to roads and bridges. We've already talked about the feasibility study. We're not going to say anything more about that. That's handled. We did we had an inquiry, Scott, Nagata, who's, hi Scott. Had concerns about, and ongoing concerns, I will say, in Whitehall about the intersection traffic control plans. The decision by Public Works, I'll get you in a second, David, the decision by Public Works that it's going to be a roundabout. Anybody who lives here in Waikoloa is not going to raise their hand saying, we think that's a great idea. David,
I don't want to change the subject because I gotta leave, but I am David Talley. I work for Waikoloa School and I live in this area. Is there a emergency evacuation plan as a community? Because I am on the safety committee with the school and we are trying to coordinate our evacuation along with residents because there's going to be an onslaught of people wanting to. So if I can get access to that, I'll have an email to me where I can look at it. So then
okay, so tell me again, you're on the safety subcommittee.
on the safety committee.
Okay, of course, great, and that's great. Julia, did you want to address?
I just want to add, we've had a emergency evacuation plan that has not been approved by the county of Julia Awas, excuse me. It hasn't been officially approved for some years, and we're in the, between leadership and the Firewise Committee. I think we're going to get to a point. We've been talking to Cindy Evans and I talked to Talmadge this morning or this evening. So we've really got to get this out to the public.
So-
We just got to get somebody's blessing. And if neither the WVA nor the county wants to approve it because it might be a liability to them, can Corporation Council give us their blessing on this? We've got a community and we need to get something out to the public.
I don't know what that is.
Emergency evacuation plan.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
I'll get
what
your email
section is this?
address.
Yes.
Excuse me?
What's the, where can we find this?
Just ask. I'll send you a copy.
Okay,
We have a copy.
so and this is through the leadership council, right?
Leadership, yeah. and
Okay, all right,
Firewise,
so
yeah.
then, yes, that, I think if you would share it with us, that would be.
Well, I
great.
want to get it approved before we share it. We're trying to
Well,
get it
we
approved.
might get, you know,
One of the things I realized is people have approached me that said many different times, Harry Kim at one time asked the community to do an emergency evacuation plan. There has been different, and the Waikoloa Village Association Board of Directors, there has been different efforts over the years to put together something to address emergency response, emergency preparedness. I do believe there's several, and the most recent one I believe is what Julie is talking about. So my point is, if there's been work done by the community and they've tried really hard, then we need to bring those plans forward and show them to the county what actually has been done, and then see where we can, what we're talking about, what we can do with them, because there was a lot of people who put a lot of time into developing these plans, and they're just there, and we need to bring them back out and bring, brush them off.
We need
And
the
talk
county.
about them and see what we can do, right? We can talk to the planning department and just do it in a way that we recognize all of this good work. It's been done. A lot of people have done it. And then what can we do now? Can we brush it off? Can we spend a little money, and try to get it evaluated just to make sure it's current? But, I think we have a start. I mean, it's there.
okay, so who's taking, who has this now? That's what I want to know, planning.
Planning,
It's not a
it's
planning
not a planning
function.
thing.
It'd be
The
probably civil defense.
civil, so it's been submitted to civil defense?
Several times. And the
Okay,
mayor
that's
and the
where-
fire department.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's got
Hey,
copies of it.
yes, tell me, okay.
And
Oops.
Cindy and Tim Richards, everybody's had copies
Okay,
of it.
yeah, all right, good.
So there's
Well,
nowhere I could go to see a copy of this.
yeah, I mean, David would like, and, so, yes, I'll get your email, and I'll send that to you, Julia, and then we can share what at least we were talking about. Okay.
Because like our emergency plan here at school is on our website. So if you
Yeah.
Look on it. It's
Okay.
the emergency action. plan.
Thank you very much.
For everything.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
yes, thank you very much for being here. Okay, so, I guess in terms of, we're just gonna move on from the intersection thing. I don't know what, I mean, Kevin, when we were talking to Mary about this, and we talked about how the community had given input on that, and basically it wasn't heard. Something to that effect, right?
Yes, this is Kevin, our feedback, maybe Cindy, you can take this feedback, which is. I have I believe the Westwood Village community has been clear in like a clear majority communicating that they would like to have a solution now, not some distant day in the future. And that most people, I'm inferring, prefer than a traffic light, because that's something that can be done now, whereas this idea of acquiring land, doing all this design, and someday in the future building a roundabout, we've all lived here long enough to know that if it's 5 years away, it's never gonna happen. That means never. Right? I had to explain this to a recent arrival one time, said, the roundabout is so much better. I said, "Yes, but the choice isn't between traffic light and roundabout, it's between traffic light and nothing. And so now we've got nothing except for speed tables that slow the traffic down so you can never turn, because it used to be clumped up, but now it's all spread out evenly so you can never turn.
Yes, and then,
Okay.
and going
So,
to.
and I.
Anyway,
I
so
do
it's a
think
moot point.
it's interesting because even when the mayor had his town hall meeting here, I think it was very obvious that you need a short-term solution while you're pursuing a long-term solution, but there clearly is short and long. And the short term, if you started today, you might have your intersection up in 12 to 18 months, maybe, if you fast tracked it, but that's better than waiting all those years it's gonna take you to build your roundabout. The thing is they're allowing and proceeding with Waikoloa Heights. Kamakua Nui is gonna start their construction here shortly. You're gonna see construction 2025, they're gonna have how many more units? 140 or something? Right down here at the end, you're gonna have those, right? And so things are coming, things are moving, there's infill, houses, more cars. So
And
we need short term, right?
we do,
need something
and we need
that
it
we
like
need to see.
immediately. If I'm going east on that road, I go to the intersection, I turn right, I go west, I go and take the U-turn around, and I come back and I get on the line traffic. So we need it now, and you guys, we really, I know we know about this, we do have, Karen does have a report on the Fulco wastewater, and Cindy, you can do us on the, potable water issue, because you met with JoJo and the OHA people just recently. So I gotta move this forward. We have 10 minutes and he walks out, and he's the minute.
40-second comment on the public, on this very issue.
Okay, quickly.
So I spoke with the mayor about the intersection improvement. He said I asked him if he could ever change course in that. He said it's possible. I said, because there's so much momentum behind the roundabout, would you even remotely consider changing course? And he said anything's possible. So I think chair in this committee can also send a letter to mayor echoing your concern, saying we would like an intersection improvement right away rather than a roundabout later.
Okay, so if
Good.
anybody wants to make a motion that, and we'll second it, I will
make a
absolutely send that
motion.
letter. Do I hear a second?
Bill motion, trustee.
Bill made a motion. Who
Just say
seconded it?
second.
Me.
Tracy seconded, and I'll write the letter.
Okay.
Okay.
Hang on. This is
Discussion
more
of vote. Is there any
complicated than
discussion on the vote? Going
that.
once.
Can someone state the motion again?
The motion
The
is, that
motion, go ahead.
you go, no, you said it, go, say it.
I was only jumping in
Okay.
to get you to do it. That's
I
all.
could repeat what he said.
Okay,
He said you're going to send a letter to urge the mayor on behalf of this committee to move forward with the traffic light rather than a roundabout, and make it a traffic light now rather than roundabout.
okay. Okay. Julia, you wanted to start?
I just wanted to comment that we did, Julia Allis, that we 6 years ago did our action committee
Oh,
report. I
100%.
mean, it's like
Yeah.
planning, we don't really have any clout
Yeah.
in CDP. I mean, we write things, but nothing happens.
Julia and Kevin and I were on a subcommittee. We did a report on the intersection, and we did a report on the second action road. And it was brought back in 2019. It was started, my very first meeting, I went on that committee. And we did it in 2008 and 19, presented it,
All right,
and this is 23. Okay, so
So we have a motion. I
motion,
made a
yeah,
motion to send a letter to the mayor to urge moving forward with
Right.
traffic light now instead of a roundabout later.
okay,
Chrissy seconded.
Bill made it, it's second.
Discussion. I would like to say that
Discussion. So,
I personally don't care if they ever try to build a roundabout later or not. That's
don't
not my
either.
point. My point, I think, is that they need to do the traffic light
thank you.
now. So
Yes.
I propose we don't focus on the roundabout part, we
Perfect.
focus instead on just the short term.
Yes, we need, it. Yeah.
I'd like to amend it and say that you add that report you sent back.
Oh,
Part of the letter.
okay,
part of
plus,
the letter.
that's a
Is that
great
all
idea.
about-
Plus include report.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I like that. Okay, now, moving on.
You gotta,
Did we vote?
We have to
Oh.
vote.
So all in favor,
We
geez.
needed to roll call vote since Ms. Renata.
Okay, roll call. Okay, let's go. Well, can't we just do him independently? We can't do a show of hands here? You want a roll call? Oh, good lord.
In favor.
Okay, so Scott's in favor. Can we do it verbal? Does that work?
Bill's in favor.
Bill,
Kevin in favor.
okay,
You were part of that report.
yeah,
It was determined by the county that they're gonna. do
okay,
it.
so you're
So
passing,
I'm passing.
Trissy?
Is that a no? I'm sorry, is that a no?
Yes, that's a night.
Okay, and Ruth is yes.
You can
Karen
abstain.
is yes.
Catch it. Okay, very good. All right, so that will happen. Now, Karen,
I'm gonna give my time to Cindy. Because she only have 7 minutes.
okay, but
Go.
this is, that's really sweet of her because the issue was potable water, water and wastewater there. There's been a big issue that's been going on, cesspools. It's not just Pulico's issue. It's actually a national issue, but it's definitely a Hawaii issue. And so,
We'll cover it at the next meeting. I think hers is more urgent at this
okay,
point.
so
I just think
Cindy.
the High Harbor community, their big number one is, well, two things. One is water. They get their water from Kohala Ranch, which is a private water source, but more importantly, they don't even have enough pressure to ever fight a fire. So they're really challenged even by the pressure that comes all the way from Kohala Ranch over to them through Kohala by the sea or whatever. And so they really want a new water source and they've been challenged. They've tried many attempts, but hopefully OHA trustees and DHL moves forward. The other thing, if they don't have an evacuation out of Kailapa, they have 2 gulches on both sides and bridges. If there's an earthquake and something happens, they may just be landlocked on both sides. They're asking if there could be evacuation now going up and figuring out a way without going up and asking for help to do that. So those are where their number two issues. Yeah, so I wanted to point that out.
that's
I think-
great. And thank you so much for meeting with them, and it's great. I mean, OHA actually came and they met. It wasn't long, but they were there, right? Okay, and JoJo, of course, will be here. She's having some problem that she texted her about, so.
Can I
Kathy,
make a public comment?
yes,
I got my environmental magazine yesterday and I was just so angry when I read that the Congress has not passed taking away illegal fireworks. We just had a building half burned down because kids had fireworks behind the KTA store. And there was another fire just another day in the last 2 weeks with kids doing fireworks. We're talking about fire protection and all these other issues. Illegal fireworks have got to be gotten rid of.
yeah, trust me, I was in a fire in Hyde Village when I lived there. That came and it started with fireworks up by the post office on a windy day on January the 1st. Okay, so
Can I ask a question?
You may.
Question for Cindy. Is there some follow-up action available for us or somebody else to take to help with that water issue for Waihae?
Yes, I think there's a lot of challenges. One is the county is a little reluctant because the piping, to take the piping out to them, they would have problems with pressure also. So if they were able to get, the other thing about water is at a high elevation, you've heard of Alamilo, fields where they get water. Well, that's up at kind of at a higher level. And so the thing is, what they have said is they would have to tear up the road coming down High Road and put in a much larger water pipe and take more water in to be able to bring it down and then run it down the highway or run it over to get